I'm Dr. Duke, and I'm joined by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Alex, we've got another one of those tragic stories out of California. They all seem to be out of California, about a group of 13-year-olds who are forced to spend their English class discussing and reading and analyzing a transgender transition story. Talk about this a little bit for us.
Yeah, thank you, Duke. And it does seem like so many of these horror stories are out of California. But what happens in California eventually spreads to the rest of the nation. Unfortunately, it's kind of like the coronavirus, gradually spreading to the rest of the country, poisoning us all. And so what happened here was an English teacher, seventh grade English teacher, ordered the students to do a quote unquote literary analysis of a transition story. So there was some makeup artist on YouTube, Nikki De Jager, I think, who created a YouTube video saying, you know what, guys, actually, I'm a transgender. Apparently, it's the transgender's most popular YouTube video of all time. And so the children were ordered to kind of break this down. What does it mean to transition? Oh, isn't the Netherlands wonderful? Because they were the first ones to have so-called homosexual marriages. Really grotesque. And parents are upset, and children didn't want to do the assignment. But as often happens in California, choice is not one of their values.
It's funny, when you use the word literary analysis like the story does, as a professor of English, I can tell you, Mom and Dad, when your kids are doing literary analysis, it's not what you used to do when you were in school. It's not identifying plot and character and theme. It's not looking at imagery and illusion and poetic discourse. It's now politics. Literary analysis, this is true at the university level and all the way down. When your kids are engaging in English class, when they're looking at texts, they are not reading literature, they are not studying humanities. They're not studying the humane ways that literary texts work. They're doing politicized readings like this one. And how do you know it? Because this assignment spent how much time talking about how, like you said, how wonderful the Netherlands were, how sexually progressive they were, and it was one big political cartoon, one big political commercial for a progressive worldview.
It really was, and when you read the stuff about the transgender transition, it's about how heroic and how wonderful, and and they treat this stuff all as serious. Ever since she was a little boy, she felt like she had been born in the wrong body, and I mean, just a few years ago, people would have recognized this as, you have some kind of mental problem, you have some kind of spiritual problem. This is certainly not something that you should tell children is legitimate. But as you read this text that the students were assigned, you realize that it's 100% straight propaganda designed to get children to not only think of transgenderism as normal and healthy and quite all right, but actually to think of it as something good, as something brave and bold and wonderful, and isn't humanity evolving because now we get to surgically mutilate our genitals and impersonate the other gender. I hope, assuming the world doesn't destroy itself, that we'll look back at this time period and be like, oh my goodness, what went wrong? It's like collective delusion. But, with the brainwashing of the children going on like this, I think it's going to be very tough for us to pull out of this nosedive.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure this is a mental or a spiritual problem on the part of these little kids. A lot of it has to do with suggestibility, right? You've got a culture now that's already targeting, particularly in California schools, little kids for this kind of gender confusion. You have parents now, woke parents, who are pretending that their children are boys or girls because they simply want to play dress or costume dress. I'm not even sure this is necessarily gender dysphoria. You're just taking these very suggestible little kids and you're moving them a certain way. Why wouldn't you're getting mommy's approval? You're getting your teacher's approval. What little tiny kids don't know anymore. They want that approval. They're going to go down those roads. This all occurred at Lyle Briggs Fundamental School in Chino, California. What was the response of the teacher in the school when parents pushed back a little bit?
Yeah, well, first I'll say I think you're absolutely right, Duke. And California's data shows that. The UCLA, we covered this at the Newman Report here at Freedom Project. California's data now shows that about a fourth, in fact, more than a fourth of California's children 12 to 17 now identify as gender non-conforming. Whereas, a decade ago, it would have been so small you could barely register it in surveys, right? So this is clearly happening by the power of suggestion. When the schools are encouraging it and Hollywood is encouraging it and even, woke parents are encouraging it, what you're going to get is a whole lot more of it. And we talked to Dr. Paul Cameron recently at the Family Research Institute, and he said, sexuality is learned. And so if the schools are teaching children that homosexuality and transgenderism are good and normal, you're going to get a whole lot more homosexuality and transgenderism. And of course, this is the goal. Now, as for the reaction in California, parents are really mad. In fact, we were contacted about this by Stephanie Yates with Informed Parents of California, and she is really, really mad. She's leading now a massive grassroots army of parents, not just in California, but this is now spread to other states as well. We actually interviewed her for this article. She came out very clearly and said, you must get your children out of the public schools now. This is hopeless. Yeah, we need to keep fighting back against these totalitarians, but right now, you cannot sacrifice your children while you do the battle. I mean, get your children out and then go back into battle. And I think she's right. And there's a lot of parents now across America who are feeling this way. We have reports of pockets in some parts of the United States where it's getting especially crazy, where homeschooling is growing like 50% every year. I think we're going to see these trends continue as parents realize that trying to fight this at the school board or trying to fight this at the legislature, you might as well go bang your head against a brick wall. They're not making any progress. The stuff just keeps getting more and more insane, more and more sick. And the schools, the education establishment will do whatever they want, regardless of what parents think.
Gender nonconforming. You put the words nonconforming in front of a 12 to 17-year-old, they think they're rebelling. It always amuses me on a college campus. Kids show up the first day of class as freshmen. They all get the same tattoo in the same place, right? And they think they're actually rebelling. They take the same progressive attitudes that their teachers and their kids around them have, and they think somehow they're not conforming. So what you're doing is you're sexualizing this. You're making it sexy. You're making it rebellious. You're making it brave, as you said, right? To be not what you're supposed to be. And a lot of kids at that age can't resist that thing. The scary thing about it is we're giving them hormones and we're giving them surgeries and we're providing cultural opportunities for them. That means they never have to grow out of this delusion. It's really sad. Alex Newman, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.